there's not a, unless I missed it, there's no video for this story. So this is where I get my little dyslexic brain all caught up in a million things by reading you guys some stuff. It's story time, whānau. Get comfy, get your hot drink, get your hot water bottle, because I've got a lovely story to tell you. It's called A Leading Economist Says Government is Being Cute About Saying It's Not Borrowing for Tax Cuts, while another agrees saying it's not hard maths to work out. By Nicola Willis. Images by David Seymour. That's the book. I'm just going to go through this and read it all out to you. Finance Minister Nicola Willis has repeatedly said the government will not borrow to fund tax cuts, the size and scale of which are also yet to be confirmed. She has also said tax cuts would be funded from reprioritisations, including cuts to the public sector. She repeated the comments today in a Finance and Expenditure Select Committee saying we won't be borrowing extra to pay for tax relief and it won't add to inflationary pressures. Labour's finance spokesperson Barbara Edmonds asked if the government would, quote, be borrowing at all in the budget, which will be delivered on May 30th. Willis said the books left by the outgoing Labour-led government, blame Labour, required borrowing, quote, simply to meet day-to-day costs. So that is borrowing, yes, replied the Labour spokesperson. Barbara Edmonds also put a tweet out today that says, after months and months of gaslighting New Zealand's debt level, the Minister of Finance has finally confirmed they will be borrowing more. They wouldn't need to borrow more if they hadn't promised tax cuts. Captain Obvious says that thing as well. She repeated the government would, quote, not be borrowing for tax relief. The reason for that is when we chose to reduce taxes, there are two ways that we can go about funding that. One way is to simply add that on top of operating allowances and therefore to add to the borrowing burden for New Zealand in order to fund that tax reduction. The alternative course, which our government has taken, is to undertake a program of reprioritisations, otherwise known as cuts, to stop some areas of spending, like, school lunches for kids, that kind of thing, like, getting more revenue from tax on cigarettes, those sorts of things, where we do not believe there is maximum value being delivered. To raise limited amounts of revenue through other tools and to use those two things to offset tax reduction. That is, of course, the course we have taken, and what it means is the tax reduction is fiscally neutral in the budget. But independent economist Cameron Badgery said if savings were identified and one chose not to bank the savings, but use the savings to fund an initiative, 1 + 1 = 2, you're implicitly borrowing to do it because it could have gone towards retiring debt or issuing less debt. They're borrowing because they've got a mismatch between expenditure and revenue, and tax cuts give you less income. It's not hard maths to work out. The money would have been used to borrow less. The maths is pretty simple. I suspect there is going to be a little bit of smoke and mirrors around this in regards to whether it will be nominal borrowing or whether it will be debt as a share of GDP. Last paragraph, I promise. Fellow economist Shanabor Jacob said the government language around the issue was, quote, a bit cute, right? It's the same pool of money. You only have to borrow when your expenditure outstrips your revenue. The reason you borrow money is because you haven't got enough money to fund your expenses, and the net effect is what matters. By talking about revenue and expenses as somehow separate doesn't really change the fact that in the end, the end result is still the same as the net position. Asked if he meant Willis' phrasing around what the borrowing was for was just politics, Jacob said, of course it is. He said he did not think it was fair for Willis to say the government was not borrowing for tax cuts. Jacob said the government was borrowing for tax cuts. The government was borrowing for tax cuts was not catastrophic, but it did differ from what National promised in the election. And now I have to go and rinse my eyeballs out from going cross-eyed several times from reading that. And Chewy, you can lose your mind. Go for it.
These fucking pricks. Like, honestly. Like, they were all like, oh no, it's not going to be like what you think it is. We're good financial managers and we're going to just roll out some of the most devastating cuts to public services. We're going to make it easier for workplaces to pay you less, to get rid of you over less things, to not follow the process. We are going to just really cut down on the services that you can access and the ease that you're going to do it. We're going to punch down on the poor. We're going to take food away from kids. We are going to take money away from the disabled. We are going to include the long-term sick and the job seekers that we want off job seeker. We are going to do all of this stuff because Labour have absolutely raided the kitty and there's nothing left. Hey, landlords, it's the fucking lolly scramble. It's never off the table. We're not even going to talk about cutting that. That's absolutely locked in. Fucking you get everything that you want. But don't worry, we're still not going to have to borrow about it because borrowing bad. Labour did a lot of borrowing. Labour is a lot of bad. And then right now, before the budget, it all comes crashing down because you can't hide it anymore. These fucking clowns, the absolute disrespect that they're treating the voting base over this is astronomical.
My turn. Can I come in?
Go.
So,
cleared and hot.
If to spell this out to people who don't need it spelled out to, because it's super easy, right? I've got $100 in my bank account. I spend that $100 on something essential like pornography, and I have no money left in my bank account. And then I have to get groceries and they cost $100 and I put it on a credit card. If I hadn't have spent it on that well worth of pornography, then I wouldn't have to put it on debt on the credit card because it comes from the same place. If they weren't spending money on giving tax back to landlords, they wouldn't have to borrow. And it's how cheeky is it? What phrase did she use? For day-to-day running, to meet day-to-day costs. If they hadn't spent their $100 on landlord porn, then they wouldn't have to put it on their credit card for meeting day-to-day costs. Simple, easy. And they're going to try and keep saying this. And I mean, Chewy, we said it, you said it, that it would be absolutely, there'd be some borrowing. And there is. Confirmed today. And after she said there is some borrowing, she still tried to say it, but it wasn't for tax cuts. Yeah. Just like buying my veggies after spending that $100 wasn't. Yeah.
I hate when these guys sort of try to equate doing the budget for the entire country to balancing the books for a household. But this is a case where that absolutely works. If you are spending more than you are making, then you are borrowing to cover it.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those memes where it's like, guys, help me budget help me balance my budget. I've got $500 and I need 50 for food and 50 for this and 50 for that and $1,000 for candles. Help me balance my budget. By the way, the candles have to stay. I'm still spending $5,000 on candles. It's just fucking ridiculous.